Welcome back to Danny Rants. Today we have a very, very special guest. If you've watched my stuff, you've heard me talk about none other than Orkestrated. I believe the Godfathers of Melbourne sound, and they are here today because unfortunately we have a very special announcement to make. That's something that's fucking a bit of a shock for myself to hear, but welcome, Dean. I know Adam couldn't make it today because he had some medical.
Yeah, unfortunately couldn't make it. But yeah, as you said, we've got some huge news. And so basically Adam and I have decided to hang up the headphones, so to speak. And we decided to perform a final set later on this year. And on top of that, we've decided to celebrate that occasion. We're going to be throwing a massive party. And at the party, that's where we'll be performing the final ever set.
Okay. And how long have you been thinking about doing this for? Like, what's that? What was this thought process here?
I don't know, man. We've been thinking about it for a while. We just figured that, well, there aren't many DJs who can kind of end on their own terms. Like when they want to do it, they kind of fade away into obscurity, and you just kind of never hear from them again. And we're like, nah, fuck that. Like, we're still playing, we're still pumping out tunes, but at the same time, it's not like obviously what it was back in the day. And like, what better way to kind of finish it off than just throw one last epic party, and just everyone can have a good fucking time. It's almost like celebrating an end of an era.
It's like doing a funeral, but like while you're still alive.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So I know at first I was kind of sad thinking about it, but now the longer it's gone on, I'm kind of excited because, like you said, like we were just talking about now, we get to reminisce a bit, get to celebrate with people that matter, and we get to go out on our own terms. And it's I can't think of anything better than that.
So from my end, I've already expressed this to you multiple times now, knowing what's going on, but it's super sad to me, right? To me, it's an end of an era. Without Orkestrated, I don't think my career exists, which I've told you guys this before. I think a lot of others don't, but especially my own. You guys were probably booked at my first party, and I reckon I booked you possibly thousands of times. It's definitely hundreds.
Sure. Definitely hundreds.
Yeah, so there was, and so like throughout my journey, it was like motivated by you guys. Like I know you're a little bit older than me, not much older than me, but when I first started cutting my teeth in the industry, I was listening to you guys. You were the sort of soundtrack, right? And me and my friends were kind of growing up, having these iconic, memorable times at the old school TFU, like Wawa, Karova, all these massive venues before this sound was anything. It was just a little couple of kick drums in a fucking dark room in the middle in the city that no one even knew about. And those moments, like there's so many iconic memories that I have that are attached to Orkestrated songs, be it the Conti or be it any venue in Melbourne, really. Or events I've done, like Debbie Does, Fornicated, like these events for me, the shotgun my career into being something that I could live off full time.
Yeah.
Without you guys doing that, am I as passionate? I actually don't know. And I guess for myself, which people don't know, but you actually came to me to talk about doing this event with you guys. And when you did, you sort of said, we'd love you to be a part of it. And for those that don't know, we did the 10-year party, myself and my business partners, Kyle and Mango from Loud, which was fucking iconic. Like it's top 3 parties I ever did in my whole entire life.
For sure.
And I was like, I think you could like talk on this too, but that moment, that 10-year party, which I know was really kind of nothing, but at the same time was everything to all of us. It was like this moment that like time froze, like all these people that we grew up with for the last 10 years or had been coming to these events that, were involved in this scene that was so important to all of us really. And like, bought people's houses, bought people's cars and like let them live a life that they probably couldn't have ever expected they would be able to do. Was because of this fucking sound, and that kind of 10-year party represented that. Yep. And we had all the old heads and we had all the like new heads, I guess, but predominantly, the old heads that were there, from club promoters to DJs and everyone who was sort of motivated or like inspired by you guys. And now knowing that this is going to happen, though it's sad, I agree. It's like, it's fucking going to be iconic, and it had to go out this way. This massive party, which is sort of, it's the end of an era, but it's the best way to do it rather than just letting it fizzle off in a sense.
Yeah, 100%. And like you were touching on the 10-year party, and I remember when we were thinking about doing that, we didn't really think much of it in terms of, it's going to be this epic party, and it's the way it played out, and the hype we got from it, especially after the first party.
Yeah.
But thinking about like how much of an imprint that left on not just us, but the people that were there, that's what kind of made this decision a bit easier as well. because if we can recreate half of what we managed to do at those parties, like Adam and I will be happy men.
Yeah.
And you're right. So I didn't expect to see like so many old heads, but it just made it so much more special. And I think that's what we've envisioned anyway with this party as well. So we just kind of want to get everyone that was at that 10-year party, people that missed out, obviously, because I remember there was a lot of hype. In fact, we decided to do a
second show.
And
that sold out. I'm pretty sure it was like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was legit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people will obviously still remember. I mean, the second show was just as good as the first.
The first was it, but
yeah, it was through bar.
Yeah.
It was just, it gives me goosebumps now just thinking about it.
So everyone who went there, that's the thing. Like, some of these guys have gone on to run festivals, including myself, and done all these massive shows, but everybody I know, top 3 shows they went to was that show.
Yeah.
And it's just in this little backyard at Penny Black. Effectively, it was a backyard. And the sound system wasn't that great. There's nothing else special about it.
No, exactly.
It was just that minute, time, and moment. It celebrated something that we'd all enjoyed for so long, and you guys hadn't. Like, I know I throw this term around all the time. It's something you don't say, but I'm always like the Godfathers of Melbourne. Like I say it all the time. But the thing for me is that I think that your journey has sort of been stapled to that. So even if it's other guys who have gone on to be successful, from Will Sparks to Joel Fletcher to other guys like Stevie Mickey Knox that were involved in the earlier days, everyone sort of uses you guys as their case study of why they started, and then they've gone and continued themselves on. So that moment sort of brought everyone to this epicenter of what created it, and then they were able to experience it. But fuck, man, there's people there I hadn't seen, I couldn't even remember existed at that event.
Likewise, man. It was a trip out, and I think it's a perfect example of, like you said, the venue wasn't really much, the sound wasn't great, but it was the people, right?
Yeah,
it was
100%.
the people that made it, and it's a perfect example of what can happen when like-minded people rock up in one place and just create the vibe for the venue rather than the venue creating the vibe.
For sure.
For the people.
My favorite part of that party was when Adam grabbed the fucking headphones and did Isabella Live. And you're not from Melbourne if you don't know what Isabella is. So if you don't know that song, go YouTube it now. And
I've been Nightcrawler, not Isabella, yeah. But you're right, 50% of people always say, play Isabella, and then 50% of people always like, play Nightcrawler, but obviously we know what they mean.
Yeah, sorry. I said the wrong term. So go onto YouTube now and go listen to Nightcrawler and educate yourself. But when he did that, like I've still got that video, and I think I told you last time I saw you, when I'm sad, like I'm in bed, I've had a rough week, I just watch that video to pep myself up.
You can't help but just get pepped up from that.
Yeah, and I think everybody's used it forever after that as like a promo video for you guys. What pisses me off is that event we did with you guys, and people will send me videos for you guys, and it's that, and I'm like, how the fuck did they get that video?
Yeah, it's like every promoter has got that.
Yeah, and they've got the high def one. So I'm like, there must have been a rat in the ranks. It was
for sure.
All right, so obviously we're talking about the end of it, but you can't talk about the end of a moment in time without talking about the start of it. So let's wind all the way back and kind of go through, I guess, the whole journey of Orkestrated, pivotal moments, iconic moments, things that sort of were important to you guys. And I guess let's start with like how and why did you start Orkestrated?
The why, I don't think there was a why. Like me personally, I never really even wanted to get into DJing. It was never really like a passion of mine when I was young. But I was always into music and parties and, just like every other kid was. But I remember a mate of mine, I think it was in year 10, came over with he just had one turntable. I think he got given to him, or he wasn't serious about it, but he was just, he just decided to bring a turntable over to my house. And my old man had some records, and we're like, oh, fuck it, let's just chuck some records on here. And I don't even think it was attached to a speaker. We were just putting it on there just to fuck around. But I know just the feel of the vinyl and pretending to scratch it, and I don't know, it just kind of did something to me, and something clicked in my head, and I was like, this is pretty cool. So I just decided to buy my own decks, and I think my sister had her 18th birthday not long after, and I think I bombed that set hard because vinyl was expensive, man, and I was only playing with vinyl. I was like, nah, it's an exclusive vinyl set, like I was some kind of like 20-year DJ. I knew DJing for like 4 months, and so I couldn't afford like expensive records, so I'd buy like $3-4 records in like the ship bin at like the record stores, and I'm like terrible dance music, but like that's all I had. So I remember I was just DJing that for like 2 hours, and people were just like, the fuck is this? And I'm just loving it. But I got the bug, and regardless, I got the bug. Started doing birthdays, and Adam at the time. It's funny because Adam and I, we went to high school together, but we weren't mates. Like, we were mates. Like, we'd say hi and stuff. We were friendly, but we weren't like buddies. And I remember once I started getting a few parties under my belt, I just didn't want to play the R&B hip hop kind of stuff. And that's when I remembered Adam used to like that stuff. So I just randomly hit him up. I'm like, come help me out, come play this stuff. And then that's how we kind of formed our kind of bond together, and then we grew a friendship. And then our first gig, proper paid gig for money, was at the old, do you remember Barcode at Crown Casino?
Yeah, I do, yeah. 24-hour nightclub.
Yeah. It
Lots
was
of,
like for people.
degenerates used to hang around there.
Yeah. For people that don't know, it was just a random pool of people, from people that lost all their cash to people who didn't know exactly where to go out on the weekend, so they just end up there. It was like there was pennies and pool tables and
a lot of people
bar.
didn't like sleeping too. You hang around there.
Yeah. So basically, we just started playing there randomly, and then there was the manager from there left and started managing this place called TFU.
Well, who was the manager?
Mark. I always get the surname wrong. Carbonice.
No, I don't know. He must have been before my time.
He was like one of the first managers.
Yeah, okay.
And Manahi from
I'm in Manahi.
TFU, yeah, there was a guy named Manahi that was DJing at Barcode as well. Sorry, DJing. He was a barman at Barcode. He worked there as well. So anyway, long story short, they put in like an AI type system, computer system, to start playing music there, so they didn't need DJs anymore. And then Manahi had a birthday on like a Tuesday night at this place called TFU. It's like, do you want to play? We're like, yeah, fuck it, we've got nothing else to do. So we went to this venue, we played the birthday party. The venue looked like a piece of shit. And we're like Catholic schoolboys, you know what I mean? Like, we weren't used to, I don't know, running those circles, those kind of venues. And like, we're thinking about starting this night up. Do you want to play consistently? And Adam and I actually, like, first, I'm pretty sure we were like, nah, fuck that. But then we kind of were like, well, again, we had nothing else to do because we weren't at Barcode anymore. So let's stuff it. Let's just do that. And that was 2 floors. So there was basically just us there. And we started playing. Let's just say we'd open the doors at, I don't know what time it was, 9, 10, whatever it was. We'd close at like 12, 1 o'clock.
Oh, really? TFU did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, it was just, this is before it was even like known as even just like a dance venue. It was
It's funny because we use the word TFU now, but we never called it that. It was 2 floors.
Yeah,
like,
2
that's what
floors.
everyone called it.
2 floors up for those playing at home.
This is a random thing I'm going to mention, so people don't know this. But the guy who buys all the houses on the block, that Danny guy, he was the owner of
Yeah,
it.
he was the owner.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't even know. He was, my brother used to just lean on him because he was always, for some reason, he was always happy to speak to my brother and shout drinks.
Yeah.
And all night at the bar, my brother would just leech off him.
Yeah, he used to shout us drinks too.
Yeah, he's like my brother was just smashed as one night. He's like, oh, Danny reckons he's gonna he just reckons he just bought a helicopter. He wants me to. He asked if I should just go for a helicopter ride with him tomorrow morning. What do you reckon? I'm like, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't think you should go. It's just too random for me. But and then eventually, I can't remember the time frame exactly, the timeline of how it kind of got to that recovery stage. And
Was Colbeck there at the time?
Colbeck was like early on, yeah. And then he kind of transformed the venue into that. So he was like, we started getting busier and busier. So we'd play from like 9 p.m. till, like I said, 12, 1. Then eventually it was like 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we were like buggered. We were on the, what were we on back in the day? Like the Nodos. Remember the Nodos?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be popping Nodos and shit. And then Colbeck was like, fuck this, we're gonna run it properly now. We're gonna get the best DJs in Melbourne. We're gonna do a sick recovery.
That was no management.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, and that's why it propelled us, not quickly, but that's why we got like street cred, because all of a sudden you had like Boogs, T-Rec, Shardy, Nick Coleman,
Nick
Corvo, all those guys.
Mike Toner,
Yeah,
Radiator.
Mike Toner. Yeah, man. Radiator.
It was like the who's who of like their underground.
Yeah. And people would go to see them, but then we'd randomly pop up for sets and people were like, who are these young dudes randomly playing with this in this lineup? Like, who are they? And that's how we kind of got our start. But in saying that, we knew we had to be different because it was so hard to compete with those guys.
So this is the thing. So you said you were playing sort of random trance stuff or whatever. Adam was playing hip hop. Obviously, when you think of Orkestrated, it's sort of a mix of it's dance and hip hop. Realistically, kind of the first guys to do it, I'd say, that in that era. at what point did you start playing electro? Was it when you started playing around these guys that you decided to move into that?
So they kind of influenced our sound. And then we're like, well, fuck, like everyone's losing at Boogs' tracks and Space's tracks and whatever. Like we'll dabble in that as well to be a bit relevant. And then Adam fucking idolized Boogs. He still does.
Yeah, he does.
Like it was just his infatuation with him is ridiculous, right?
I remember going on reviews with him and just sit there and watch him.
Yeah. And he just wanted to learn. He just wanted to be like the a cappella king, basically. That was Adam's goal. And he was always just like, how the fuck does he do it? How the fuck does he do it? So, yeah, it's like you said, Adam would just go and just watch him for hours and hours and hours. And then he'd come and apply his craft like while we were DJing. And it helped a lot that I was, that he had me with him because I would be able to mix and he could just focus on the vocal. Whereas if he was doing both, it would have been a bit more difficult. Not that he can't pull it off, but at the time it would have been difficult. So yeah, so I'd just be mixing my tracks and he'd just be fucking around on the other CDJ with acapellas. And then eventually like he'd find something that stuck and he'd be like, yeah, it sounds sick. So he'd go live with it. And then eventually people would be like, fuck man, that like Warren G acca over this track or whatever the fuck it was.
Because yeah, people were doing different stuff. There was a lot of Prince. There was a lot of like old sort of disco tunes that were getting pushed over electro tunes. But you guys, in my opinion, were the first ones to really start pushing that hip hop. And it was all that sort of nostalgic hip hop we grew up with, like Warren G. You know, like
Snoop, Eminem.
Yeah,
all
Dr.
like
Dre,
the
whatever.
heavy hitters.
Yeah. But fuck, man, watching Butters do, like, I know he always talks about Boogs, but in my opinion, he's probably the best DJ I've ever seen. I know that like he says Boogs, but yeah, I reckon it's a flip a coin sort of thing.
Yeah.
But watching him down there when he's got his like headphone on, he's just smashing the thing. He's in his zone, and like watching him mix out of songs with like 20 seconds to go and not beat matching, doing whatever. Like I don't know, I feel like he's so underrated. I don't think he's underrated. I think he thinks he's underrated.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's one of the best to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And just his timing is flawless.
Yeah.
And the punters don't really notice, but when you know what's going on and you actually observe him, like even little things, like if he's pressing the cue button just to echo like a bit of a vocal, just like and then let that vocal delay out, like you have to hit that like perfectly, man. And you might be able to fluke it once or twice, but you'll be found out on the dance floor because it just won't sound right. He does it consistently all the time, and like there's no way I could do that.
It's a craft. Like it's actually a craft.
Like the timing, and that's why like I always think he would have been a great drummer as well, because his rhythm's really good. You got to have good rhythm for that, just to like hit those marks. So we ran with that because we would get people coming up to us saying like it's almost like a breath of fresh air to hear, I don't know, like a random vocal with Dre and some underground kind of electro tune that you wouldn't think should go together, but it transformed the track for the better.
And it kind of blew it up too because, you know, like electro at the time was relatively niche. And then when you started putting in these tracks everyone knew, they were almost sing-alongs.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
sort of turned it to be not commercial because it wasn't close to commercial.
None at all.
But it was more user-friendly. You know, like it went from being niche to not as niche because anyone could understand it. Anyone could relate to it.
Yeah. It just became accessible.
Yeah.
And I think that was the key, obviously, because you can be popular with a niche, and that's great. But then for us to be able to grow, we needed that niche to expand.
And that point of difference.
100%. And because, like you said, because it was accessible, people started talking this and that, blah blah. You know, people would they would go out of their way to kind of check out the club first of all because it was kind of new and fresh and.
It's the only place you could hear that music too.
Yeah, and it wasn't big for those like that had never been, especially to the original venue, the original 2 floors. It wasn't. How many people do you reckon it would fit?
400 or 500.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember having my 19th birthday there and I invited like school friends and others and they were like fucking their jaw dropped when they walked in.
Yeah.
This joint was so dark, like red candles. There was a lot of ecstasy being consumed on the dance floor. And they were just like, there was sort of 50% of them that were in awe to it and then got sucked in and came 3 days a week for the next 3 years. And the other ones were like, what is this joint? Because it was like, it was grimy as. And I found these old videos the other day. It was some guy had made them and actually I was in one of them. And it was just like so dark that the camera couldn't even work. Like the joint was effectively like a hole in a sense.
Yeah, it really
but it was like our hole.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so special about it because it was, like I said, there was nothing like it at the time, especially with that music. And then to the point where, because the venue was pretty small as well, you'd have fucking lines like
Yeah.
around the block, and that added to the mystery of it because people would see that as well.
Again, I know so many people these days that I talk about it with, and they're like, man, I never got in there. I tried so many times, I never got into that place.
Yeah.
Like, I only heard good things, but it was definitely like, you would remember this too, but we used to walk down there, like, we'd go out somewhere and meet a couple of girls or whatever, and we'd just walk them straight through, and it was like rock star status. Yeah, like
legitimately.
you'd shake hands with the door staff, they push you through, you get a couple of frees, and you'd walk upstairs, and one of the boys would give you a Jaeger bomb. Like, that's what made it so special. Yeah,
so good.
Yeah,
and like Adam and I used to sit on the crates in the alleyway, and we used to like observe the lines, and we just even now we still talk about it. We were just like, what the fuck happened? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah,
like, what is going on here? Because like I said earlier, like there was no ultimate goal. There was no like, we're going to team up, we're going to DJ together, we're going to take over Melbourne, we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
Because that's the other thing I was about to mention. So you guys, when I first met you boys, you were both solo artists. There was no such thing as Orkestrated yet.
No.
And at that time, it was Bartis was doing sets with Miles Jr., and that was sort of like growing its legs. It was like a big thing there. And Miles was like, it was the tale of two words. Like, he was from like Hawthorne, and everybody else is from the southeastern suburbs. But you guys knew each other, obviously, but it didn't seem like you were going to join up. So at what point did that sort of happen? Obviously, you had been working together, but like...
Yeah.
When
but
was
it wasn't
the official...
like a plan. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think it was just after Adam won the In The Mix. I think it was number one in Australia. When was it? 2008?
Dude, fucked if I know.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but it was somewhere there anyway. And I was dabbling in production, and I'd sprinkle a few tracks here and there, and nothing really kind of bit. But I could tell I was getting better. And then I made a Man-Eater remix.
Yeah, I remember it.
And that kind of opened the door for me. So all of a sudden, this thing just went viral. Back then was when all the DJs played it, but no one at home would have known because it didn't work like that back then. But it went viral like in like Melbourne clubland. Like that. So that was my key to the exposure that I needed. Like to the point where, remember I had the Red Room at Cuba?
Yes.
I could never get in there, man. Right? Remember how there was like a little rope?
Yeah, I remember.
It was cool though. Like
yeah,
it was.
Dude, I'm like, you'd literally go there on a Thursday night and you would spend 3 hours trying to get wristbands.
Yeah.
And then when you did, you just sit in this little tiny room that was like not even massive.
There was nothing to do in
with
there.
7 other people.
It was so funny, but for whatever reason, I just always wanted to get in there.
Everybody did though. I used to take mates in there for their birthday and they'd be like, oh, is this it? I was like, yeah, but like, how good is it? Yeah.
But because I was like almost like a nobody back then, after I made Man-Eater, I think it was Nick Foley. He was playing in that Red Room and he used to play Man-Eater and stuff. And then I was like, that was my in to that room. And then that's when I thought, even though it sounds stupid, but once I got into that room, I thought in my head, I'm like, I reckon I'm in here. Like
I've made it.
I've made it. It kind of spurred me on. And I think after that I dropped, what did I drop? I think it was All This Love.
Yeah, the mobile disco one?
Yeah.
Oh,
not the mobile disco one. Oh yeah, it was, sorry.
Yes.
And then that's when Adam made that whole Dean Paps vocal on there, which fucking followed me for 15 years. It was fucked.
Still to this day, I think I've told you before, but my mates will still say just randomly, Dean Paps.
Dude, I was filling up my car to 7-Eleven once and I'm just filling up. And then all of a sudden, over the speakers, I just hear Dean Paps. I was like, the fuck out right now. Like, it was just ridiculous.
And so what even that, like taking that back, because obviously that is so iconic. For anyone who lived in that era, that Dean Paps was, I guess, the beginning of it, but you guys went on to do it through all your stuff. What was the thought process there? Was it just a piss take or like, how did it even happen?
I think maybe it was like a semi-piss take. I think it was. But at the same time, Adam was big on kind of branding our stuff. Not then, we had another conversation about it then, but we noticed that like that took off, for example, right? Like it was fucking stupid. Like I made a tune, there's a little gap and Adam's like, let me just put something in there. It needs something. And then he did that. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. But then he played it in St Kilda that night at Fuck Mondays.
Yeah, Fuck Mondays, what a venue.
Yeah, so good.
Best.
And it got a reaction. And then he played it more and more and we noticed like it stuck. And that helped me heaps, mind
Yeah,
you.
I knew who you were because you used to play like later and it was like more underground. And then it was like when that Dean Paps song came out, it was like you definitely 100% went from down up to all out here. Yeah.
And so that's when we were like, well, we need to start doing that more. Let's just start branding our shit and get it in people's heads. But from that, Adam was like, look, man, I'm flying as a DJ. You're about to kind of fly as a producer. Let's join forces. And so that's how it happened, basically.
Orkestrated was born.
Orkestrated was born. I think for a period we actually had a name of it was maybe 3-4 months. Our name was Halfway House.
Yeah, wow.
And I always say to Adam, do you reckon if we just stuck with that name, everything would have panned out the way it panned out? You know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot's in a name.
100%.
I think it wouldn't have panned out, but I mean I'm glad we changed the name. I think we just used that because we couldn't figure out a name, and we're doing our first set together, and then they were like, we need a name. Like, what is it going to be? Adam Butters and Dean Pabs? What's it going to be? And then for some reason we did that. But yeah, so then Orkestrated eventuated. And yeah, that's how that stuck.
So what does Orkestrated mean?
Well, I mean, it's honestly, it is a reference from Lord of the Rings, like the orcs.
Yep.
And we're at the Saint, I'm pretty sure it was the Saint one night, and Nick Corvo, he was running fucking Mondays.
So for those that don't know, it was Saint on a Sunday, and it was the kick on from TFU to Revs to the kick. It was like back then it was like the last kick on.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'd sort of do the whole weekend, and you'd go to like TFU, Revolver, and then Fuck Mondays. Or if you did sleep, you'd go to Fuck Mondays to sort of, talk about the night. I think it started at 6 p.m. and it went
early.
to 1. So it wasn't even that late. And there was $10 barbecue feed. There wasn't a whole lot of people eating.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the feed was
so
good. That was like, I was like, my first hosting job was there.
Oh, wow.
And I used to get 5 drink cards, $50 and a free meal.
Yeah, how good's that?
Didn't use the meal too much back then.
No, you wouldn't. Still, it was good to have the option.
Use the drink cards, yeah.
He was at the bar and he was kind of like, he just didn't seem himself. He was a bit like, I don't know, looking around, almost looking a bit paranoid. And I went up to him and I'm like, Nick, man, what's going on? You look a bit not quite NQR right now. It's like the orcs, man, they're fucking everywhere. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like the orcs, dude. They just want to attack you. They want to get you. And I'm like, Nick, I've got no idea what you're talking about right now, dude. You're kind of freaking me out a bit. And he's like, the orcs, man. They're just people that bug you all the time. They don't fucking leave you alone. Everyone wants something from you. And I'm like, from that, somehow we took that. I can't remember exactly how it eventuated. I think I might have told a mate about the story. And then I think it was him that was actually like, you should call yourself like Orkestrated. Obviously using the OIK. It sounds fucking cool. I'm like, yeah, it does sound pretty fucking cool, doesn't it? So we just ran with that, but that's how it kind of came about. So it wasn't like just something that we just.
It's funny because that term then went around because I mean everyone used to call anyone who was a drainer an orc.
Yeah. So anyone who would suck the life out of you, like if you saw him from like 30 meters away, I'm like, oh fuck, that comes an orc, man.
Yeah, I remember it was like a term that was used like pretty commonly.
Yeah.
Like now it's like drainer or frother or whatever, but back then it was like, he's an orc.
Like proper orc.
Yeah. That's gold.
Yeah, it was great.
And then but from then it went pretty quickly, right? So you guys became Orkestrated, and then I remember at that time it was Dean and Adam, standalone big sort of artists in our scene at the time. Then Orkestrated sort of catapulted and was bigger than anybody in those venues back then. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like, I remember when you got biggest, and maybe I'm wrong here, was when we moved, I shouldn't say we, but the venue moved to Burke Street. Mm-hmm. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, I think so. I think because the venue was a bit bigger as well, so you could service more people.
It's like double probably.
Yeah, it was a big venue, man. And the hype was there as well. New venue. The crew was basically the same. We did have some new heads and stuff. But you're right. It just took off. I don't know like exactly what it was or what.
Now, I honestly would say it was beach ball. So I remember again going back to that recruitment era, right? So we had maybe a crew of 20 of us, and then pretty quickly towards that period of time when you guys blew up, the recruitment was like there was fucking 100 of us. Like we used to go in there all the time. It was all kids from Roeville, like all Southeast sort of kids, and it was to do with beach ball. Like that song kind of blew up. People were downloading on LimeWire. People were getting on the forums, and then there was a Sunday church CDs that people used to get. And when that happened, it was like you could actually pass it on. So it was no longer just going viral to DJs.
Yeah.
It was something you could physically give to people, like be it CDs or be it like legally downloading it.
Yeah.
And then everybody wanted that Orkestrated beach ball song. And then everyone wanted to watch it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it was like more and more people coming to the venue because they wanted to hear that one song that only you guys played. And then it just became fucking wild. Like I remember it was Sardines. Like when you guys made that song, it would be like everyone would kind of
wall
rush.
to wall.
Yeah, it was wall to wall. You couldn't move.
Fucked. And then obviously Nightcrawler helped a lot.
What year was Nightcrawler?
It was actually quite early. I'm going to say like 2009 maybe.
Yeah, okay.
It was we made it like it actually took a long time to take off. Originally, I made the production under Nightcrawler. I made a like a bootleg remix to MIA's Bang.
Yes, tune.
So that vocal was running over the production, and Adam was like, "Dude, there's something about the production. It's too good just to have some random track over the top. I reckon we can do something. I can make an original." And I'm like, "You don't sing, you don't rap. Like, how are you gonna do that?"
Does now.
Yeah, he does now. But and then we were away in Mount Martha. We had for a little getaway on. I think we might have been playing at the Conti that year, and we were staying at Mount Martha. And for whatever reason, Adam had to drive home in the morning, like early, like 5-6 a.m. I don't know what it was. And but back then, we'd been smoking like copious amounts of weed, and we're just fucking high as fuck. And he was just driving home, and then he'd call me like every 5 minutes. He's like, "Dane, I've fucking got it. I'm telling you, I've got it." And I'm like, "Got what, dude?" He's like, I've got the vocals for the track." And like he'd be spitting like random just like snippets of it. He's like, "Listen to this." He's like, "What do you reckon it is?" He's like, "God, I can hardly see. Start of daylight equals death." And at the time, I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, "Adam, you're ripped. Go home, man. Like, just go to bed." But he kept calling me. He's like, "I figured out another line." And even then, I wasn't really into it. But we eventually went back to the studio afterwards, and we finished it properly. When we played at two floors, people didn't. I feel like from memory, people didn't even really take to it at all. Like it wasn't even. It was almost like it was awkward. It was almost awkward. I remember. And then maybe for 2-3 months, people still weren't really into it. And then something clicked. I don't know what clicked. Maybe people had to learn the
Lyrics
the
and
words,
words,
the
yeah.
lyrics to it a bit more. I don't know. But something clicked, and we just played it again one night, and the whole fucking club was just singing along with it. And what the fuck's going on here? And then week in, week out, it just started happening, and everyone was just doing our heads in play Nightcrawler, play Nightcrawler. And I don't know, man. Somehow it became
People still
this
sing it though
juggernaut.
now. Like it's like you play it and then everyone sings along to it.
It's
you know?
ridiculous.
Like, it's one of those things. It's like I would say it's the most iconic song of that generation. Probably that and Faces a Mess from Nick Coleman.
Yeah.
The two most iconic songs that like if you're around those days, you remember those songs and you remember the words to Nightcrawler. Yeah, like every single one of them. And now it's kind of weird because I grew into it. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I originally was like, I liked a lot of your other stuff better. And then over time, much the same as these other people, it just kept hearing it. And then I remember like at the 10-year Ork party, now it's one of my favorite songs from that time. But at the time when we were like indulging in it, it wasn't one of my favorite songs.
Nah.
I had so many other songs that were like at the top of that list, but I kind of grew into it. But again, it goes back to, I guess, this 10-year party, this upcoming party. There's these things that like, for whatever reason, they sort of steal a part of your brain when it comes to nostalgic. So you think of a certain time and like there's a soundtrack or there's a moment and it's that 10 years party or it's Nightcrawler or it's Faces of Meth or it's, you know, the one that's coming up. And I guess that's why I was so excited to be involved in it because I generally think that this is the next big moment in that journey that we've had for the last 15 years, you know?
100%.
So you kind of blow up, Orkestrated gets bigger and bigger and bigger in the Melbourne underground. Over time, your music kind of gets bigger and influences more people. And you've had the opportunity to go overseas a couple of times. So can you talk us through that journey?
Yeah, so just for whatever reason, I don't even know how it happened, but so I made a tune called Donald Trumpet.
Banger, I love that song.
And it was pretty big in Melbourne. Like it always used to get good reception. I'm like, this is cool, you know, like it's another tune that we can play out all the time. And then we started getting emails from Argentina, of all places, just requesting like booking us over there. And the boys from Lucky would be like, "Oh yeah, there's a bit of heat from Argentina. They want you to come over and play." I'm like, who the fuck wants us to go over and play in Argentina? Like, why? And they're like, "I don't know, man. But we just keep getting emails and calls." And so we hooked it up, not really knowing why still. And when we got there, we realized that Donald Trumpet just like basically went viral over there. It just went viral. Like every DJ was playing it. Everyone was listening to it. But we didn't know the extent of it. And it was almost like a nightcrawler in a sense. But like, yeah, in Argentina. And I remember when we played at Club 1 in Buenos Aires. And this place was fucking so full. It was probably like 3,000 people. And we had to, we walked in from the back door and there was probably like a wall of maybe like 20 people wide that we had to get through to get to the DJ booth. And people were like stopping us, wanting to take pictures, signing shit. I just remember me and Adam were just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is actually stupid. And like, that's not us. Well, that's not me anyway. Yeah, like, I'm not that guy at all. And I don't even want to be that guy. And so it was so surreal. It was just a surreal moment in my life.
Especially like what, it was a 26-hour flight or something like that, stupid.
Yeah. So we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We're like, fuck, this could just be like we're going to rock up
20 people,
fly for a whole day and play this shit gig and go home. And then during the whole set, people were so receptive. Like it was legitimately, I felt like Justin Bieber. Like legitimately, it was actually so stupid. And then fortunately enough, we managed to go back there, I think 12 or 13 times. The biggest venue we played down there was, the name always escapes me, but it's on the coast. And that place holds like 10,000 people. And we played a recovery. We finished at like 7 a.m. And even when the curtains were drawn, so to speak, no one had left. And it was just so fucking stupid. And we're just like, what? How good is this? Like,
that should have been like pinch yourself moment, right? Like you're making this music for, thousands of people in Melbourne that again, didn't even really like the Melbourne sound. Obviously Melbourne Bounce blew up, but Melbourne sound never really blew up across Australia, really. That didn't have the same impact. To travel 26 hours to a random country and play in front of 10,000 people off the back of a buzz, like that's like almost doesn't sound real. Yeah, like
no, exactly.
And did it feel like that when you were there?
Not really. Like people were making Argentina, like soccer tops for us, put our names at the back and shit. And like the love from those people was just, I wish I could experience it with someone else other than Adam, just so they can understand it.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
because we tell people, but it's not, you don't get it. Like if we could throw you in there, that's why you'd be in agreement with me. You'd be like,
this is fucked.
This is fucked. Especially for an act that like's not. We're not worldwide. We're not global. No one really knows who we are unless you come from Melbourne. Even interstate, like in like that's why we're kind of like a rare. We're in that rare basket. I think that like as a brand outside of Melbourne, I mean, are we like? I don't think we're that super popular.
Yeah, I'll talk to others because people ask me a lot because obviously my journey with Melbourne sound / bounce has been pretty prevalent, and people will sort of say, "I'm like, do you know where it started?" And they won't know. Yeah, from like Queensland or whatever. And I'm like, dude, that genre started 10 years prior, and then that was like an adaptation on that, right? So you guys, from all those big guys, like, your Wills, your Joels, literally everybody who's massive in that scene, they all pay homage back to you guys. How has that sort of changed, and I guess the respect you get from those guys, like how is that for you guys?
I mean, it's always humbling whenever we get mentioned by anybody in a positive note. It's always like, it's nice to be thought of like that because, like I said, it's not something that I never put myself up on a pedestal, and I'm glad that we could influence those boys because they're fucking talented.
Yeah, definitely.
And probably more talented than I am, and I could see that from when they were younger, especially Will, even Joel. But when Will used to hand us like CDs of his shit, I'd play them. I wouldn't even have to fucking listen to it. I'd just put it in and cue it and play the fucking track because I knew it was going to be dope. So to have that recognition of almost being that inspiration for them to be able to basically achieve their goals and live their dreams, it's fucking humbling as. Like you're not gonna, not a lot of people get to experience that feeling.
It's like from mine, like I always say to you guys, but I try to put you guys on my back as much as I can because I just feel as though, all those boys pay homage, like everybody does, but it's like without you producing on that shitty little computer, which we all remember that, we all see that photo.
We'll pop it up again.
The giant fucking screen with your dressing gown on.
I had no idea what the fuck I was doing.
But without that happening, none of this happens. Like none of these guys go on to play on worldwide stages. And there wasn't just those guys. Like there's, 5, 6 of those guys that travel around the world. There's people from Adelaide. There's people from America, TJR. So TJR came over here and there was obviously Tonic and who's now Diero. Those guys were influenced by Melbourne, which is what you guys started. And they went on to live careers all over this place, all overseas. Yeah, like so for me, it's so important that I make sure your story is a part of my story, or these guys make sure that your story is a part of my story, because it wasn't just the top of the 10 people that blew up. There was hundreds. There was literally thousands of people that were trying to live this dream because you fucking touched that computer.
Yeah, thanks,
and
man.
that's something that you probably don't think about, but like
No,
I have
don't.
to say it.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man. I
like,
appreciate that.
yeah, because it's just like it's a weird moment in time. Like, you know, you think of these weird movies, but it's like if Dean Paps doesn't touch that computer, what happens? Yeah, like probably
who knows?
nothing. Because these guys and those other guys who were older than us, because you guys were in the middle age, like Nick and T-Rec and that, those guys were a different type of music. Like they were proper eccentric musicians. And I don't
100%.
believe they could have motivated the next generation. You guys were sort of influenced by them, but at the same time, you were so normal that it seemed achievable. And then, you know, Melbourne is well renowned now for making music. And there's nowhere else that did that. Like per capita producers, I would hate to think where we like sit in the mark. It's got to be up there with.
No, it's got to be.
It's got to be possibly number one. You know, like there was a point in time when you guys were sort of starting off and when Will and those guys blew up where every fucking second person was a producer.
Yeah.
And people were having hits that were like resonating around the world, you know? But yeah, it's like, I don't know, as I said, like I've said this to you heaps of times, but I just have to keep saying it because it's just so important to me. Like, I just think without Orkestrated, I don't exist. Without Orkestrated, Will Sparks doesn't exist. Without Orkestrated, Joel Fletcher doesn't exist. Without Orkestrated, TJR doesn't exist. The list fucking goes on, yeah?
Big
Like,
statements, but I'll take it.
yeah, like, oh, well, you're going to have to because it's the truth. So I guess for you, other than like all that sort of stuff, is there some iconic moments or iconic gigs in Melbourne that you played that sort of resonate with you guys as like being a moment in time, or, you know, just maybe just your favorite other than the 10-year party?
Yeah, of course. 10-year party goes without saying. I think those nights, actually, you mentioned the Conti, which I totally forgot about.
They're the
there
best.
was some good times, and during, especially because it's summer, everyone's fucking happy, no one's working. Like the vibes there are really, really good.
And I used to book it with Daniel Lamana, who was the owner of Cloud9, and we would book you guys literally 17 days in a row, and we would
Yeah, it
run
was
events
great, man.
17 days in a row. And it was much the same. We'd live down there, and it was just the same community and culture. And it was just get on the piss every single day,
so
down at the
good.
Conti. Yeah, it was like, I'm fucking so shattered that it doesn't exist because there was thousands. We used to do
Yeah.
like 3,000 kids there.
I just miss those days of like, all right, cool, we got a series of shows there. Let's book a house.
Live
and
down
let's
there.
just fuck shit up for 2 weeks or whatever it was.
And
But
back then, no one had kids and stuff. So it was
yeah,
legitimately
exactly,
just,
man.
everyone would just be
Just
sunbaking.
carefree.
Yeah.
we'd end up at random houses. Like Adam and I used to love just, let's just say a bunch of young kids would come up to us and be like, man, we love you guys, blah, blah, this and that. We'd be like, oh, are you staying here or are you going back home to Melbourne? Like, oh, no, we got a house here. And Adam and I would be like, oh, fuck it, we'll come back to yours, we'll smoke a Jaws. And they'd be like, what? We're like, yeah, fuck it, let's go. So after our show, we used to love just kicking back with like 18, 19-year-olds, talking shit, making
Telling
their
war
night.
stories.
Yeah, man, just smoking some joints and just making their night, basically. Like, we used to love doing that shit.
Man, so do I. Like, it's like even this whole Danny Rance thing, like that's what it is. And I know you're the same as me. Like, I love telling war stories to young kids.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
so
like-
good.
And that's like when there's someone was like, you know, should start telling them. But that's where it started. Like me just sitting there going, bro, back these days
Yeah.
we used to do this. This used to happen, blah, 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 blah. But it's like without us telling these stories, then there's nothing to aspire to.
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
sense. Yeah,
And
like,
I think that's not the difference in like us and other DJs and stuff like that, because I'm sure other DJs do the same thing, or artists, whatever. But I feel like that's where we've managed to keep our longevity. And you're talking about like favorite gigs and whatever. I think it's like there's not necessarily a favorite gig. I think it's just favorite moments, like big moments. Like our run at TFU was just so fucking good because we felt connected with the people. I think that's the difference with us. And like I said, if you're from Melbourne, you know who we are. If you're from another part of the world, you probably don't know who we are. And if you're from another part of Australia, you might know who we are, but you might not. And I think that's the difference. Like, for whatever reason, we had a real connection with like the kids in Melbourne, and I used to love cultivating that. I used to love like finishing my set, talking shit, like you were talking about, like with your favorite moments. Some of my favorite moments were legit after a set at TFU, just sinking a few beers, talking to some random people in the smoking area, and just creating that rapport with the people that loved what we did. Because it's cliche, but if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a canvas to fucking do anything.
and you did this full time. This was your only job for
Yeah, exactly.
almost 2 decades.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a big part of our longevity in the industry, especially in one little place. Because if you're isolated in one little place, eventually like you're going to get stale. You're going to do this. You're going to do that, and then you branch off worldwide, and you kind of get a second wind. But with us, it wasn't like that. We had to we were in Melbourne for a long period of time, and we had to figure out how do we keep this going because we just basically we love doing this. The rest of it's cool. If we went international, great. But if not, we don't give a fuck. Like we love this. We love the people that love what we do, and that's all we cared about. So going back to the special moments, like what I was given, and Adam as well, but I'm talking about me obviously. What I was given, some things that I never really thought about till after the fact or till now when I'm thinking about, cool, we're going to do our last ever set now and it's going to end and whatever. But without Orkestrated, without DJing, without people supporting our shit, like I wouldn't be married to my wife. I wouldn't have my kids. I met my wife out at the clubs, and I mean, I'm probably 100% correct when I say if I wasn't Dean Paps from Orkestrated, she probably wouldn't have started going out with me, but that's cool. I can live with that. I'm happy with that. And I think
it goes for the same with everybody in that industry, to be honest. But
yeah, man. And I even said at my wedding, I'm like, I'm sure you're wondering how the fuck I landed a 10 out of 10, but that's just the perks of DJing. Like, I don't know
Orkestrated.
I know what else to tell you. But, like basically my whole life, my life as I have it now would not be where I am now, like I said, with my wife, my kids, if it wasn't for the people that supported us, because without that, then we don't exist. And that's why, like in a roundabout way from the start of our convo, I want this party to be so fucking special because we're celebrating us, yes, but we also want to celebrate the punters. We want to celebrate the people that were with us from the start and that went on our journey with us. And hopefully all those people can rock up and we can just have a good fucking time.
And that's really another one too, is like you go back, like, I said it earlier, but it's like without Orkestrated, you guys blowing up, my parties aren't as busy. I go from running 200 people parties to 2,000 people parties, which then I meet my wife and I buy houses and I travel the world. It's a non-domino effect, but that's the extreme. But how many other people were in TFU and met their fucking partner? True. Or were at the Conti and like they were out that night, they went downstairs instead of staying upstairs and they met their next best friend. Like, and that's the thing that I always think about with clubs is like so many of my friends have married their partners in clubs that I did, but you guys were probably the soundtrack to that. So it's like how many iconic moments or memories or, pivotal parts of their life was there an Orkestrated song being played in the background? I'd hate to imagine. It's like a butterfly effect.
Yeah, 100%.
You guys don't exist, then where does that go? What happens? Why do they go upstairs? Why do they go downstairs? Why do they cross the venue across the street? And like, what happens in their life after that? So it's a very kind of strange way of looking at it, but it's something that I kind of reflect on too. I guess this is the perfect way to wrap up, but I don't want to wrap up here. So what does Orkestrated mean to you?
Basically, like I already touched on it in the sense that if it wasn't for the brand and what I've experienced with Adam, like I wouldn't have my life as I do now, my wife, my two kids. So, I mean, there's no like real proper like good answers. It's going to be all cliche shit, but like it means everything to me because it's what molded me as a young adult, and gave me the opportunities to do whatever the fuck I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it was almost like without that, I couldn't. Just simple shit that you only think about when you get old, or when you get older. Sorry, not when you get old.
Yeah.
But like I've been home to watch my kids grow up. Like how many people get the opportunity to just be home from when their kids are born to 4 or 5 years old until they fuck off to school. But like a lot of guys specifically, they miss out on that stage of their kid's life. So it's allowed me to do things like that. It's allowed me to all the friendships I've made, whether it be through like people like you and all the punters, and that's what it means to me. It fucking means everything. Like there's nothing without Orkestrated.
Yeah.
Put it that way. You know what I mean? Like there's I don't know, and it gave me something to be proud of. When like I said, I never really planned on anything. I didn't plan to do this. I didn't plan to take over the world, so to speak. But it's something I can be proud of. It's something that I can hold my head up high about. And same with Adam. We're just both so fucking wrapped that it went the way it went, and that we can end it our way. So yeah, that's basically what it means to me.
And for the same thing for me is, like I said, like Orkestrated means so much to me. Hence why you guys, thank fuck, got me involved with the party, because when you did, I sort of said to you, like, I took it as I couldn't have been more prouder that you guys reached out to say, hey, you know, you want to be a part of this thing, because it meant so much to me. Jay, the other guy we're working with on the project, we spoke to him and it meant so much to him. You know, he came back from the army and he was sort of going through his own dilemmas, and the soundtrack of you guys' tunes sort of got him through that. But it's like, it is emotional. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
and
it is.
I was talking to my missus the other day and she was like, basically didn't even really bat an eyelid at it. And this, you'll find this crazy, but I'm like, I'm envisioning this party, right, in our head. And I know we've both been talking about this in depth, but I'm envisioning this party. It's this moment that I'm never going to forget. It's basically like kind of a full stop to the end of this whole crazy 20-year journey, much the same as you. Grew up around my kids, got to buy a house, traveled the world, did all these amazing things because of dance music effectively that was made in Melbourne, and that catapulted my career into something that is everything to me. Yeah, and that makes sense. And I said to my missus, I'm like, I can see myself crying. Like, it sounds wild, but I'm like, and this is someone who's not even a part of Orkestrated. I can literally see myself fucking crying at this moment. But thank you so much for involving me in this. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me about this. And one last thing I have to do, because otherwise I don't have a podcast, but I want to thank WP Shots. I had a bottle, but I can't find it anywhere. So I pretend I'm holding one. Yep. WP Shops are available at First Choice Liquor, Liquorland, and all good independents. And another new sponsor, so 888 Digital.
Nice.
If you run events and you run festivals, go speak to this man, because he knows everything about it back to front. He's running them himself, and he's basically a digital strategical fucking genius, and he will turn your event into a dull one to an amazing one. So hit him up. But thank you so much, Dan, for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you so much from not just me, from everyone in Melbourne for creating Orkestrated, because without you guys, you know, like, I don't know what my life looks like, you know, sliding doors sort of moment. But thank you from Melbourne.
Thank you, mate. Very humbling. Thank you.